Welcome back to the Backend Story, where we go behind the scenes of people's careers and uncover the decisions, the doubts, and the stories that you usually don't hear. Today's episode is a special one. I'm talking to one who has shaped my journey. My computer science professor, Dr. Phu Phung from University of Dayton, Ohio. I did my thesis under his guidance. I worked as a research assistant, teaching, and graduate assistant while I was pursuing my master's at University of Dayton. But this episode isn't about lectures or textbooks. It's about where it all started for him. Growing up in Vietnam, becoming the first person in the family to earn a college degree, the moments he questioned everything, and unexpected opportunities that opened up for him. We also get into something bigger. AI is changing education fast. So where do universities stand today? Are degrees still worth it, where you can learn anything you want online for a fraction of cost? What are the real gaps between college and industry, and how are they addressing them? We'll dig into what drives professors teaching the same subjects again and again, semester after semester, when the world is changing so fast around them. This side of teaching most students never get to see. If you care about learning, careers, or future of education, this one will stay with you. Let's get into it.
Dr. Phu, it's a real honor to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for saying yes and making time for this conversation. To get started, could you briefly introduce yourself to someone watching you for the first time?
So hi everybody, my name is Phu Phung. I am professor at the University of Dayton in computer science. I joined University of Dayton called UD about 11 years ago. And I've been teaching computer science, focusing on cybersecurity. And before that, I was a researcher, postdoc researcher at the University of Illinois at Chicago. I spent about 3 years there. Before that, I moved from Sweden, where I spent like about 6 years doing my PhD. I was born and raised in Vietnam, and then I finished my bachelor degree in Vietnam in computer science. I stay a little bit longer there as a lecturer, like assistant lecturer, and I moved to Korea for my master study, and then I moved to Sweden for my PhD.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Professor Phu. So you have been teaching and working with students for decades now, right? If you think back to your childhood, how would you describe your younger self? What kind of a kid were you when you were growing up?
Uh, I think I grew up with uh um yeah I don't necessarily being a gifted student, but I think I will rank a little bit high compared with my classmate, um, even like from elementary and then maybe secondary school over there. When I moved to high school and then college, I think I just kind of not kind of excellent student, but I'm a good student. Um, so I always try my best. I think I'm the first generation in my family. I mean, we have some cousin have a college degree, but in my own family, I'm the first, right, generation. My parents didn't have a college degree. So yeah, I mean during the time that I study, I mean the only thing that I feel like I got motivated is from my parents that okay, just try to study, right? Because that is the only way that to have a better future. Uh, Probably maybe that is very similar to Asian culture, right? Um, So I think I just try to study hard. The first target is to get admitted to college, right? Um, and I think at that time, my target, my motivation for that is just like after getting a college degree, get a good job, and then, start a career with that job.
Then, when most of us think back to our student days, yeah, we remember mischievous moments more clearly than what we learned in classrooms. So, in your case, what are some of the mischievous things that you did as a student?
Yeah, I think that's something that I think I just told my children yesterday, because I drinking like beer a lot. I could compare with them, right? So I think that one of the things that I think that is, even it's not legal here in the US, that we start drinking alcohol too early over there. We know that is something that is not good at that age. I think we spend too much time for hang out with friends, and sometimes we party, you know, and yeah, I think that we start too early. You make me remember what I did in my 16th birthday. I think 16, something like that. One of my best friend, and he's still my best friend nowadays, give me a present, and the present is the programming book, and because
Oh,
they,
okay.
yeah, they know that I'm good at that. I have a hobby of that, because I study my programming when I was ninth grader. I and another student in the class like really good at that, and it's kind they consider us as like superstar about
Mm,
about programming in the
programming.
class. Yeah,
Nice.
that's why he gave me the book, and yeah, and I still remember that moment that we party and a little bit drunk that time.
Good to hear this side of the story from you,
Yeah,
Dr. Fu.
yeah.
So, growing up in Vietnam, what is your example of a successful life look like around you? What were your dreams as a child?
I think uh, the successful story is like you get the college degree. I think the getting college degree is already very successful at that time. Even get admitted to college is already successful. Yeah, and I still remember like I was really happy with that, right? Very excited about that. Um, and then after that, get a good job is successful,
Okay.
because I get that, um, kind of message from parents, from the society, right? So I think I still remember when I was a child, I praise almost every day about, okay, when I grow up, I pray ancestor, pray to God that, okay, let me become engineer or medical doctor. Two of the,
Okay.
medical doctor is always better, but engineer may be the second choice.
So you briefly answered my next question, which was like, what was your inspiration to join, like, pursue your computer science?
Probably, I think that's true. However, I think a career of like computer scientist is not my uh, I mean the only choice I have.
Okay.
So actually, this brings me up to another story about how I register, sign up for the computer science major.
Mm,
Even I good at programming, it's not too clear to me that was my number one career. So during that time, I think I also try to prepare for become an architect. The design houses,
design.
design.
Yes.
I think I also have some good, not excellent, but good at drawing. So
Mm.
I will study with like for a couple of years to prepare for that
So in
major.
that case, why did you end up with computer science if architecture was also an option? Why
Yeah,
did you?
so even I get admitted to architecture, I feel like my ability and my talent withdrawing an architect is not good at my computer science skill.
Got it. Got it.
And another thing that I want to know that this is come from another my close best friend, that I get advice from him to sign up for computer science, because when
Uh,
we register, when we sign up for major, I think we a little bit get lost. And I still remember the time that, hey Phu, this is the best option for you to register for.
um,
I still
yeah.
remember that. That
These moments will remain with us forever because these are the key moments where someone has advised you on what's the right thing to do at the right time. And that shaped your entire career, probably, right?
And maybe
Y-
one thing I notice nowadays, because I think in my class right now, my senior class of high school, I think more than 10 of professional now is architect.
okay.
The one, one of the popular career.
You started your career like a job as a lecturer at the same university that you graduated from your engineering, computer science engineering in Vietnam. Why did you pick teaching as your first job? What pulled you into this classroom setup again and going instead of going into a corporate job?
Yeah, I think this is also a very interesting story. So in Vietnam, traditionally, like the department who graduate the batch of student, they tend to employ like kind of top student to become lecturer. And being selected at the lecturer is very, great honor, right?
Okay.
Something. So actually, we have no clue about that opportunity when we graduate. And I still remember that I already started in a company. It is a Japanese company, IT, like, software development company. And I already start day one. And I still remember that day, like we already started, but we didn't do anything yet. And then during that day, I got a like official offer from the university. So the reason why I joined that, because I was the top student over there, and then I have a chance. So at that time, as I mentioned to you, like the department is so new, so they hire student from their graduate to fulfill the needed for the the workforce development, right? And during that time they selected like 10 up to 10 students. And I see that, okay, maybe this is a good opportunity to to start another kind of career. And at that time my interest a little bit shifting to industry via like the teaching and research. uh,
Mm,
One of the things that motivate me were like when I do the graduation, like kind of capstone here in the US, but in our country we call that thesis. Normally we develop a product, right? Develop a engineering product, and we at that time we were selected at the like kind of the research oriented project. So I get interested in research at that time as well. And yeah, and that's why I get interest. And during that time, we know that like most of the lecturer that from student to lecturer, like they of course they will get trained later, and most of them go to abroad to get higher degree, like master or PhD degree. And I think that is also reflect my my career motivation
right.
thing. And then of course I don't know whether I was selected or not, but when I was selected, I definitely I went to that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So throughout your career, you have been in education and research. If you were not a teacher, which career would you have been more interested to pursue?
Software development is maybe my second choice, and that also come back to me when I'm in the US as well. So I get the teaching job But I mean, it's just like beginning of the journey and the career, right? And then I need to study my master and PhD. So when I finished my PhD, then I moved to the US, right, to pursue and maybe looking for opportunity. So at that time, also the dilemma, like two different options. Like one is to start with my passion, teaching and doing research. And I also prepare for a second option that I would prepare for that. But I think that is all depend on opportunity and the luck that you have. So I mean in my preparation, my first priority will be the career at professor. But if not, like I'm not getting any offer, then I will shift to software development.
So
So
from Vietnam, you did your engineering and you started it in 1996, and then you moved to South Korea to pursue your master's, and then you did move to Sweden to pursue your PhD after that.
correct.
And then again, you spent like 5 years, and then you moved to US, right? You moved a lot of countries already. What was the motivation to pursue each degree in different country? What was the story behind it?
Um, yeah, I think it's very simple. I think that is just the opportunity.
Mhm.
So I apply, a couple of different places. So for example, when I applied for master degree, like I apply multiple countries, right? And I think this is also advice I always share with my students that okay, just try to do like as many opportunity as you can, and when you get offer, then just select the best one. And exactly that is what I have, right? So I think when I have well when I apply for master degree, I think I apply not only two, I apply multiple places, but I got only two offers. So I still remember one offer is study in Thailand, but only 1 year in Thailand. The first year will be in Vietnam, second year will be in Thailand. And then another offer I have is South Korea, where they provide me like full scholarship with, you know, uh, like cover tuition and, living expenses. One thing that I remember like advice is about whether you want to study like higher education, like postgraduate after you finish your degree right away. And I still have a advice for them that okay, if you spend some time, at least 2 years to work, even I mean I consider lecture at work, you will get better idea about what you want to do in the future rather than you just study like non-stop.
Yeah,
And I remember I got that advice from my former professor and also manager about that, right? And I think that is really valid point,
yeah.
and is I believe that is also very good for nowadays as well, right?
Because it will give you enough time to explore opportunities, explore your passion. Maybe this, whatever you're trying to do or study, probably is not what you really want to do. When you see
Right,
multiple careers, you
right.
talk to people, you build your network when you're in the industry, and you find a totally different passion. So it saves you time, money, and then faster you can reach to at least identify your goals, right? So I
Yeah,
completely agree with that.
yeah. Mm.
Okay, and you did PhD for 5 years or 6 years, right?
Yeah,
And
5 year plus something. Very key thing of my life as well because I get married. I got married during that time and have my first child, my daughter, during that
Mhm.
time.
Right.
Yeah.
So getting into PhD is almost like becoming a saint, right? Because it's not an easy journey. 5 years is a long, long time. Do you regret, or at any point in time while doing PhD, did you think that, oh boy, I made a mistake?
Um, I don't think so. So that will be reflected back to the point that we thinking about the 2 year gap, at least 2 year or more. So I think during that time, right, when I work at lecture and I know about, what is my passion about, things like that, right? So I think PhD is the the journey that I should go, right? I think my PhD is a journey that I already decided, or I already try my best to get it during that 3 years gap between, like, after graduation and during my lecture thing. I didn't regret that I spent time to do in PhD, because is 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 my passion, is my career choice, and I still happy that I doing that way. So one thing that I just get asked a couple of days ago, that why I selected my career at, professor. And actually your name came up to my mind, and I gave that example to people that, one of the things like make me feel like good, and, a passion of my career is that make the impact to student and to people, right? And you know that, right? So one thing I gave them example that I have a student, like, even like 5 year back, that they still get connected with me and they share their success with me, and of course they share their experience with my class as well, right? So whatsoever I have that kind of impact and the success of my student, make me feel happy, and I think
Hmm.
that's the right choice of my career.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Really, that was one of the sweetest things. Teachers in general carry it forward, right? This was exactly my next question too, and you briefly touched upon it. My question was like, thousands of students, like, and they're learning from you. You're teaching them, right? And they join companies, build things, and they make careers, very, very successful careers. And the feeling that you get looking at your students grow in their careers, it's like unparalleled. It's almost like a parent when their kids grow up and they become successful. They feel so happy, right? So this was my exact next question. You moved to United States, right? You completed your PhD in Sweden.
Yeah.
Oh, and you moved to US. What was the motivation to move to US again? It was based on the opportunity that you got in US, because you were also thinking about, okay, what's my plan B? If not this, I'll join as a software developer or something like that, which means you didn't have already a proper career choice and then made a move. It was probably intentional to move to US, or what's the story behind moving to US?
That's a good question. I think this personally, uh my career choice is to become a professor, right? So I'm very open, like I open to any, but I think one thing that I get advice from my advisor, he's in Sweden, right? So he's my research advisor, and he is British. What he recommend me, that, like, if I want to become professor, the best place for me is US, right? And of course, US is like same in India, right? So like American dream happen in most of the Asia country. So I think that two things together motivate me to find opportunity to move to the US, right? So I'm not a superstar who get the job offer right away after PhD. Normally in the US, become a professor like at the level one, like assistant professor. Normally they get job like right after their PhD in the US, right? Not always, but very, very common, right? So what I did was I find opportunity, and I was lucky that I have a PI, a professor who fly from Chicago to my defense. So he is my opponent for my PhD thesis, right?
Okay.
I know him in person because we met in like conference, thing like that, right? And my advisor invited him. He was there, and then we get contact, and then he said, "Hey, I have a big funded project, and this project actually is like what you are working on, right?" So I said, "Oh yeah, that is the, of course this is will be win-win situation because hiring postdoc is not easy for employer as well, right? Like how to find the best people who have a experience in the project you have. So we matched at that time. And then I think that I moved to the US to start my postdoc to become a kind of a stepstone to find a long-term career. Actually, if you spend like too much time during your postdoc, then it will be harder for you to get a permanent job. Yeah.
So after you finished your PhD, you moved here to do your postdoc
Yeah.
at University of Chicago. And you mentioned in your introduction you have been with University of Dayton, Ohio, in the United States for almost like 11 years now.
Yeah.
How did you find this opportunity to come to the University of Dayton?
When you apply for job, right? You apply multiple places. I remember that I apply like about 100 applications around the
No.
US.
Hmm.
I think similar story you have, right? Yeah, so I also target like the kind of first choice, second choice, and maybe miss between, right? So University of Dayton was one of the one that it's not my first choice because I think it's harder for me to get in because the ranking is really high at that time. I think the ranking when I apply is about 100 in on US News. So when I apply, I think maybe just try this because they have advertised about they want like cybersecurity at their priority, and I have that opportunity. So I think maybe just try to see the luck. Um, when I get interview here, and when I have a on-site interview, talk with people over there, I feel like okay, probably I have a very good chance to get an offer here at the University of Dayton, right? At that time, I already get another offer. So in total, I only get 3 on-site interview during that year.
Mm.
Um, a funny thing is that the university, I think that it's almost 90% that I get a job offer. It's end up that I didn't get an offer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this university, I think that I will not get an offer. I
No
just
hopes.
interview at the candidate, but then I get an offer, right? And another funny thing was like I have another job offer in New York, and that was a very sudden offer because they invite me like I think the University of Dayton invite me for interview for a couple of weeks. They plan in advance. So during that time, there were university just jump in and say, "Hey, can we have an on-site interview?" And then they get the job offer to me like just one day after my interview. It is kind of exceptional,
Oh,
but
wow.
yeah, but when I scale back up the opportunity, the university reputation, thing like that, right? So I accepted University of Dayton, and I declined over there, but the people over there still convince me to join them. They say that okay, they match whatsoever I request for, right? So I think the thing that I feel like over there, like the reason I didn't go there because they only have a bachelor degree, and their department are quite small.
And since you touched upon interviews, can you tell me for a professor, I mean, to be a professor at a university, what is the interview structure looks like? You said you apply for hundreds of jobs across in the university. So walk me through briefly on how many rounds, like what does actual interview process looks like?
Yeah, so my experience is I think it's very different between the department and university. So basically, we have research presentation, and then some university they require teaching presentation, right? And of course, how they organize is very different. Normally, you can do like at the beginning, and then you have a on one-to-one interview with faculty, and then you need to meet with leadership like dean, associate dean, or and higher level associate provost or provost, and then department chair, right? So yeah, so you need to meet. Of course, sometimes you meet student as well, so that student may evaluate you. Then like yeah, when team done together, right? The search committee will make some recommendation, and then they bring it up to a faculty vote. As I mentioned, like you need to get like almost every vote.
One interesting step I observed is even students evaluate professors' teaching capability when they're getting interviewed. Is that a normal thing?
So officially, they will not get vote, but they give feedback, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
especially for teaching, right?
Mm,
So they will give feedback to the committee. Okay, how would this faculty candidate teach about the subject that they are covering, things like that. I mean, students have a very good, you know, reflection about what they will learn, right? And in reality, that will be the person who teach them in the future. So they have
yeah,
a choice, right? They have right.
yeah, I get it. So just to feel the pulse of students, understand the feedback for the administration to make a decision, probably that makes more
Yeah.
sense. Okay, so now you have been teaching students across different countries, almost like 3 decades you have as an educator experience as a professor. Often I have heard there is a huge gap between education institution versus the industry demands. What do you think these gaps are? How are these education institutions trying to understand what are the industry needs and how are they changing their curriculum so that they teach the right things for the students so that they are prepared for their future? So, what are these skills and the process as an organization follow to keep the student skill set up to the industry's expectation?
I think that is really challenging question. But I think I can answer this under my personal perspective, right? So if you remember when you work with me, right, at the TA for the capstone, and I think at that time I'm the person who revamped the capstone curriculum where to teach students, the software engineering technique. And then I will debate between, the traditional software engineering, like with waterfall method and agile development, right? So what did I do was I talk with company as well, right? And I seek feedback from them. And then I decided to adopt the agile development. Even that is not like fully support in the department. So
Mm,
there are always dilemma about the curriculum development and revision. In one side, I mean that understandable. One side that you need to keep the foundational background, and the other side is you need to keep up with the industry, right? So one point that some of faculty member mentioned, like we do not do it, like we do not do this job for company. But in my opinion, like if you produce a graduate that they don't know what they need to do, so what is your point, right? So in my opinion, I always take kind of the hybrid approach. Like
mm,
one hand, we need to equip student with the foundational background, but in the other hand, we need to equip with like the hand-on that the industry doing, right? So luckily, I think all of my class are designed that way, except for some very foundational background, let's say degree structure or programming languages, right? It's very traditional, but all of the course that I introduce later, let's say for example, recently I created the course like cloud-based intelligent application where I introduce all of the technique like from cloud, from cloud database, microservices, cloud deployment, DevOps, things like that, right? And the feedback I get from company and from student are really good because it's the foundation for them for job interview and for for career readiness. Um, and this summer I'm teaching software engineering at the adjunct professor at University of Cincinnati, and that is another topic I will touch base with you later. Yeah, but what I'm doing is that I always looking for up to date, and I'm not alone. So during that time, actually, I have the textbook here. I don't know if you know this textbook, but it's called Engineering Software Product, and this is exactly the approach that like kind of they do it. He is a famous author of software engineering book before. And this book was published 2022 or 2021 that is focused mostly on agile development. His book before for like mentioned about traditional software engineering, and company now do not use that anymore, right? So why would this student like something that they do not use later? Um, so that means that I mean, as the educator, I always try to keep up with whatsoever is helpful for students to do it.
Two interesting points that you made. One, as a professor, your job is not to prepare for the industry. Probably, like, not many people would be in agreeing to this statement because many students, right, they come to university thinking that they will make careers like in the future. So, which means they want to think about the industry and prepare for that while they are in the university. So, definitely, they are feeling so insecure by almost at the end of their course that how will I secure a job now after this? What kind of a question? So, and a huge gap students are feeling because the skill set that they have learned are helping to an extent, but not enough to be confident and crack the interviews.
Yeah.
So with this hybrid approach, I kind of agree, but I'm still trying to understand why not completely be industry focused. Why should we learn the traditional way in colleges?
The point here is that like so thinking about like long run, right? The technology change like so much, like
Mhm.
every decade, maybe they change completely, right?
Yeah.
But the foundational background is still there. Time
Mhm.
background is like 40 year, 50 year, right?
Mhm.
So without building the stepstone from the background, how can you build the, the big house or, the upper level, right?
Mhm.
So let's say, um, like when, for example, in my class, I will introduce, let's say, microservice architecture. But without knowing about software architecture in general, how can you understand
Yes.
what the microservice architecture, even though that people doing? So of course you need to build up like step by step, right? Because you cannot say, hey, doing this like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is microservice. You need to equip students with the understanding what does mean, how it's helpful and things like that, right? So I mean, back to your question, I think my class is still industry oriented, but
Mhm.
I do not just do like the hand-on. I need to equip student with the fully
Correct.
understand, right?
Yeah. And the backgrounds that they come from, you have to keep that also in mind. Not everybody is like a prodigy in programming already. So they're coming
Yeah,
from with
that's true.
zero background. And now, if you talk directly about cloud services, they're like kind of lost. So
Exactly. Exactly.
it makes perfect sense to build that solid foundation where they feel comfortable getting into the technology, and then on top of it, build that latest technology that industry is adopting. Right? Probably that's the best approach in my point of view. But yeah, there are a lot of things that the professors or the institutions that they must be constantly keeping a tab on what's the technological advancements going forward, because that's where eventually students will go join and start working on it, right?
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Thank you.
But the number of students who have a like high motivation like you or good student earlier is less and less. Yeah. So I know from my own experience, I know that like some people, some students, they tend to stay away from my class because my class is so heavy. I
Mm.
and whoever stay with my class, they like my class. I can say confidently because I got feedback from students like that way. Student
Okay.
they also mentioned to me that okay, there are some students they say, oh, like do not study this class because it's so hard. But I mentioned that upfront to students like at the beginning, like this class is like it's not hard if you study, keep up with the material.
Mm.
The problem is some students they just I don't know, I don't understand. Like they just skip the class. So and if they skip the class, then what they learn?
And maybe one of those mischievous things that I used to do in my school days of skipping classes. I worked with you as a research assistant, teaching assistant, graduate assistant in around 2018-19 time frame. I did my thesis with you, and probably I was the first student to do thesis with you, right?
Yeah, so Rakesh is my first research student with thesis. And I think also the first student that you get the full graduate assistant support as well for 1 year, right?
Yeah, it was an exception that I think that you took for me. You were beyond some of the rules that only for 6 months one can get a GA job, and that's what. And you went and I think you spoke to Dean to extend my GA thing for 1 year. And I still tell my friends that during my masters, I got paid for the entire masters because I worked for you and as a TA for some other professors, Leon.
2 years, you got 2 years assistantship.
Yeah, I worked as a TA for in my first semester with Professor Saida,
Yeah.
and then I joined you during the summer for as a research assistant, and then for the next following semesters,
Oh,
I
right,
joined
yeah,
as
yeah. Because
TA, and then
I
yeah,
think you graduate like in 1.5 year, right? Yeah,
yes, I did thesis during that time. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah. I think you still one of my best students so far.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for all
yeah.
your support. You, as you said, the fundamentals you teach students, and you have been teaching it for almost like so many years now, like different cohorts, multiple, like thousands of students. Don't you feel get bored of teaching the same thing for so many years? How do you genuinely keep yourself motivated to walk into the classroom again and again and again and teach the same structure of the syllabus to students? Of course, there is some minor tweaks here and there every semester, but how do you keep yourself motivated? Won't you get bored?
That's very good question. Yeah, so one thing that keep me or maybe a professor motivated for teaching is that like even the material is known by you as the professor is new to the student. But I mean that general. In my case, right? So I always keep my material up to date. If you remember, my class is always two part, right? Like the theory and also a peer discussion. So in my class, it's always have interaction with student, and that is the part that like feel very interesting and also very interactive and engaged, right? Because my class always have a hand-on, and I need to do the hand-on almost every time. So with that hand-on, I feel like it's not like outdated because like I need to keep everything like up to date, especially for the class like cloud computing. Like it change like almost every semester. Like for example, 2 years back, I developed a new class like web application. I don't know if I share with you web application programming and hacking. Like I integrate the programming and hacking together, right? And this summer, I got invited for software engineering at University of Cincinnati, and I also feel very excited. Even I teach the like similar material in capstone before, the new textbook and the AI thing like that. It's very very interesting, and then it's motivate me to develop new material, new hand-on thing like that, right? So that's something I talked with my friends earlier, just a couple of weeks ago. When I tell them about the interest in it and I'm doing right now, and they say like, okay, I'm really motivated with teaching and look like I have a very good passion of teaching.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it has to be driven. Otherwise, it's impossible. So for me, as a software developer, if I do the same thing like more than 6 months, I'll be already bored with it. I want to challenge myself, learn something new, talk to a different set of people. Yeah, it's a totally different mindset. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks so much for sharing your thoughts on that.
I think another point of this career that didn't get you bored is the research component, because research is discovery, right? And
Mhm.
and you need to discover something new. And another thing is that with research, you want to integrate that to your classroom as well, right? I don't know if you are in my language-based security class,
I was.
like where we have a team project that is research oriented, right? So I always keep that at the recruitment channel for students to do like a research oriented project to my research lab as well, right? So actually the professor job is not only teaching but also doing research.
See, many universities have these fixed courses, right? And these days, many students have access to a lot of information online. There are a lot of online courses like given by Stanford or many other universities for a fraction of cost that they spend on actual institution, right? Just to pick an example, in general, they spend around like 40K, 50K per year to learn like 3 to 5 courses per year. Why should students still join these structured institutions and learn? Rather, why shouldn't they go online, take up online courses, learn, and be more aligned with the industry? Because those online courses are always updated. Why should what do you think the reason the students should still go join an institution and learn from the structured approach rather taking up some online courses and learning from there?
I think that is a very, very challenging question. I mean, in the future, nobody know, right? But so back to the question, I think what is the reason of a university degree, right? So in my opinion, I think the university degree is not just train student to become like professional, but they like, I mean, especially at UD, right? So we train student at like the whole person, like the holistic point of view. That being said, like for example, in one at UD, we have 4 year bachelor degree, where half of them are in the foundational background, not the major courses, right? So that I think that is the purpose of the degree. Um, so we train that, and I think another thing that make the university degree is still valid nowadays is not only about the knowledge, but also a lot of social skill, soft skill that is very hard to learn without within the classroom, right? So one example is, let's say, teamwork, right? And especially nowadays, for example, I think your question is in the right time, that like nowadays with AI, the demand of coding skill is less and less. But in my opinion, there are something that AI still not be replace people, like the soft skill that like being like human, right? Like the communication, the way of thinking, because when you learn about a concept about it, it's not only like how you do it, but the way that you have a problem solving, right? And you think like the holistic way to when you tackle a problem, right? So in summary, I think like soft skill, like social skill, and your experience. Like when you study online, you do not have experience at student.
Yeah.
I probably I
They,
think that's something that create the university degree compared with
yeah.
courses, right?
Personally, the difference I feel is I can call it as an incubator for students, right? Where you build your connections with your faculty, with your student, with your friends, and then if you find the right group of people, then that builds up your career from there, right? Compared to online, okay, I'm just looking at a screen and learning something from the other educator. Probably I'll barely chat, or I don't have this sense of social connection that you mentioned, which is very, very important, even more important these days. So that's the primary difference I see. But otherwise, if you ask anybody, what did you learn in your college, like engineering or masters, I remember nothing. And to be frank, on the academic side of it, I probably won't remember anything, but I remember all the moments that helped me shape my career, which are soft skills like making friends, and they have been still friends. I still travel to University of Dayton to meet my friends, even though it's like 6, 7 hours of flight. Almost once in a year, I make time to visit them. So it creates a nice bond, where you can thrive from what are the opportunities that comes in the future. But again, going back to my question, the cost is so out of the roof. So many people can't afford to spend that much. Do you think that is making, is it a good enough reason for whatever you mentioned? Is it good enough, still a good enough reason for students to come and join universities, but they're equally burning money like crazy, right? Do you think that's fair enough?
That yeah, I understand. I mean that probably that is a question for kind of very high level leadership.
Leadership.
And I know that university currently struggling with that kind of model as well, right? So
Mm,
on one hand, they need to get like good enrollment to keep the university operate. In the other hand,
yeah.
they need to make sure that the dollar they get is like, sufficient enough. Otherwise, the university will close at some day, right? Every university have that pressure. Some model that maybe is outdated, they may have to be eliminated. But if you look back to the history of the education, right? So the university model to me is still kind of, the tradition, model that people still rely on.
Mm,
And that being said, it's not like the best way, but there's also another way, right? So in my opinion, I think that the university model is still helpful for most of the students. One of the things is that like they need somebody to train them, to advise them at the beginning.
yes.
That's like
Yes.
if you graduate from high school, like you almost have no idea what you are doing and how they do train that. The thing that you mentioned about the online courses very helpful for somebody like you, or somebody already know what you need for, right? And of course somebody they may don't need that. And I think the number of people that don't need instructor to train them, to teach them, to motivate them is like not much compared with the
Yeah.
channel. So I think the university model is still there.
I am all in
Otherwise,
for
I will
uh,
lose my job.
because many students, like many companies that they have been founded, let's say just for taking a use case, many companies that are founded by multiple co-founders, they come from the same university, like Stanford or MIT or any other university, because they have worked together on some research project or some way or the other, and now they have found the right compatibility within each other to work as a team, and then they fix on some targets and they work towards that, and then they develop products and build some business out of it, right? So a lot of this incubator thing is done at the college level so that they can thrive going forward, and I feel that's invaluable when it comes to institution based education.
Yep.
And moving on, this is my favorite topics to talk recently. How is AI really changing the education system? Because the day-to-day reality in classrooms versus the industry is the gap is growing faster.
Yeah.
So how is education system adopting AI?
I don't think I can answer that question in general because I think at UD, for example, we have a lot of AI initiatives, AI projects at the university level. So, for example, they purchase AI packet to have a flyer GPT, they build a system like this, right? And they encourage faculty to adopt AI, ask faculty to create a policy for AI uses, whether they allow students to use AI or not use AI. Recently, it's very depend on faculty member. So that is the reality right now. But the question you're asking is more like kind of systematic, right? Especially for computer science. In reality, the number of enrollment students in computer science dropped a lot nationwide. I think that one of the factors is AI, right? I think we have to wait a couple of years to have like the big picture of how AI affect the education and the market in general. I think it's too early to think about that. As I say, I do not have an answer for general, but in my own classroom, in my own design and experience, I do not stay away. I mean, recently I already integrate AI to my class. So for example, in my cloud-based intelligence class, I ask students to learn about AI. I ask students to develop the project to call the AI API to create the AI-based project, things like that, to get them familiar with AI, right? I also have some kind of encouragement of my lower level class to leverage AI. And recently, as I mentioned, software engineering, I try to do whatever company doing right now. Like, for example, like at so my desire right now, I don't know what going on at the end, but my desire that okay, I will have a spin zero where I prepare the foundational background of requirement engineering, design pattern, system analysis, design pattern, like draw at least some simple UML. And I know that UML is not popular, but it's still helpful in case of design at least the sequence diagram. And then in sprint one, I gave them some functional requirement to work on. In sprint three, I have another requirement to work with, for example, database, things like that. And then my plan is that in sprint three, I will ask them like completely using AI to develop a new features, the system, things like that. So that's my plan. But back to your question, I think in my case, like I always try to keep up to date with the industry, so that I will show students that okay, this is like what we are doing here, and we are not stay away from industry. Another thing that I already discussed with company with the collaboration is that remember I mentioned to you about software security, language-based security. In that class, I have a research-oriented project, and I also want to connect company to be like research project related to AI security in my classroom. So that is some of the efforts I try to keep up to date with the trend and industry. I give the that I still keep my core thing, right? So that's why I say I always go with the hybrid approach. I still keep the core thing in my class, but in the
Yeah.
other hand, I need to adapt whatever the industry are doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
In the industry right now and companies, almost 80 plus percentage of the code that we are writing is using AI.
correct.
Some
Yeah.
companies have reached more than 95%. It's only
Mm,
about prompting right now. And
mm,
and the critical thinking, understanding the architecture, understanding multiple microservices, how all of these will sit in place, understanding the security point of view, understanding the scaling, understanding the observability, monitoring. So a lot of pieces, right? The juniors members, like just graduates, probably won't have this kind of an exposure towards building an holistic applications yet. One way or the other, they have to develop that critical thinking and how to develop enterprise grade applications. That happens only through practicing, developing the applications by themselves, see the problems, encounter what are the issues, designing, and then taking all the way to production level applications. Personally, how are you using AI in your daily work, like teaching or research, administration work? How are you using AI?
Oh, I use AI a lot. Like my kid just complain about why you using AI for almost everything. Actually, yeah, I mean, I use like for research, I think I just use right now to kind of review whatsoever I need to have improved. But for teaching nowadays, I think one of the key things that I feel very helpful is the question you asking before about the motivation, the passion of teaching, right? So um, every semester, my code I developed before uh, have a problem because of the compatibility. So in the past, I still remember when the day I developed the new course, when I introduced new programming language like Node.js, Golang, things like that. I stay up like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. It's very normal to prepare lecture, things like that, right? And like a single um, live the code error will cause like hours to debug and to see why it's happened, things like that, right? So nowadays with AI, yeah, the job is so easy. Like if I find any error, uh, they just point out, okay,
Mm,
this is
yeah.
what it is and how to make it better, things like that, right? It's really helpful in this sense, right? Or for example, the summary of the lectures or maybe outline lecture, thing like that. I think it's very helpful. Of course, it's not like the point that they can replace you, but it's will helpful to to give them the input so that it's give you the best quality of the work that you have. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And how is it helping you in research, or is it been harming, or is it helping in your research work?
But at that point, I think because the one critical thing of the research is to have like a new idea, new problem to solve, right? And an AI is still at the point that they learn whatever in the past, right? Uh, but I don't think discovery is something that AI uh, will be able to replace the research. Of course, they will helpful in, for example, in data analysis, in represent whatever you have, but it's still not at the level of the replay researcher.
One place where I missed AI during my thesis time is I didn't like doing the literature part of it. There
Yeah.
you need to do a lot of research on the existing papers, identify what is good and what are the gaps, and then all that stuff. I wish I had AI during that time because it can do that thing for you in a very, very short time and exactly identify the right gaps, prepare the right document, structuring it, like because English is not my first language. So I struggled to even draft the entire thesis, which is like 40 pages long. I struggled. I had to sit with one of the native English speakers. I sat with him. I asked him to review it and all that. So I wish I had AI to speed up that process and the grinding work that I did during that time. And for sure, I mean, students during this time are utilizing that for their research work, preparing for thesis, even preparing for defense, right? How should they even present? And they can practice and all that stuff. It's an amazing time to be in research department, in my point of view.
So this is something that is, I mean, that's true, but at the educator, I think that could be a good experience for you because I mean, if you leverage AI for those kind of things that you should doing, that maybe give you less exposed to the experience you have.
Mhm.
Doing thesis and the struggle that you are experiencing is one of the motivation of doing thesis. Like,
Oh, wow. Okay.
thinking like the kind of, the critical thinking. Of course, with AI, of course, it's faster for you. But like I have some experience that students just use AI to write the thesis, and when I read the thesis, I know exactly that they use AI, and
Yeah.
it's not authentic. It's like something that is really, if somebody like don't know, if they look at that, they say, oh, this is very good writing, but actually it's not.
You got, yeah, yep, yep.
But I mean, you can use with some kind of preservation. It's not just like, okay, copy and paste.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
AI is good at writing so much, a lot of content it generates, but it's okay. What have you as a person gained out of it,
Yeah.
right? Unless I have put my critical thinking in it, questioning each of the statements that it has produced, and then make a conclusion out of it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right.
I ask it like it gives a generalized thing, and then I probe more and more questions, make a
Yeah.
note that decisions are being made and all that. I prepare
Yeah.
a draft, and then I feed it to AI to create a concise draft of my thoughts,
I see.
and that's
Yeah.
how I use it. Because if the content is generated by AI, whoever is consuming is also becoming more less and less interested in reading your thesis,
Yeah.
right? They
Right.
know, oh, it is generated by AI, it's not your thinking.
Right.
So
Right.
the evaluation process also changes how you evaluate a student based on that. So that
Yeah.
is connecting to my next question, which is in the age of AI, what are the criteria that you use to evaluate a student when so many powerful tools are available for everyone?
What does this mean? It means that the design of your content, the design of your assessment should be, something that needs student thinking, needs student hand-on. And in my opinion, I think whatever I have so far in my classes, right? So I'm okay with, using AI. So for example, recently I changed my exam. Um, so my exam is nowadays is on Canvas, and my exam is open book. I do not have like closed book anymore. uh, and in my programming part, right? So I mean, it's the code I given to student. The thing is that like how they just critical think about what to build and what to learn from that. It's not just like, generate the code for you. So it means that like something that students don't need to use AI to cheat is like, if they don't need that, they don't use that, right? My
Yeah.
question is always open-ended. I only ask, for example, how you apply this in this situation.
Mm.
Yeah. But of course, in reality, there are some students doing that. I know, I experienced one time that student copy paste from AI to the exam.
Mm.
And I think that is a hard problem to solve. But I mean, luckily it's just very rare case
Mm.
like that, right?
I think making them understand how they apply this knowledge is the right way
Yeah.
to trigger curiosity in them
Yeah,
from the
because
evaluation point of view.
my nowadays my policy now is open material, not open book. Like whatsoever you write down, I'm allowed you to print to the exam.
Mm.
But I will not allow you to print book. I will not allow you print, of course, the thing that not written by you. And that is my
Okay.
yeah. So
Okay,
like,
interesting.
so I mentioned to them clearly at the beginning, like, okay, write a note at the beginning. And my quiz question, normally I give them the answer key already, right? So I ask them to print it back, but you need to write down. So I give them strategy how to note it. It's not just write any question, every answer. Just give them the strategy to,
So,
to
so
understand.
you don't let them use AI when they are sitting in the examination.
I do
You
not.
want them to make notes out of all the topics that you
Right.
have covered, bring
Yeah.
them, and then they can refer to it. That's interesting.
But so because I online exam nowadays, that is also because of AI. So one thing I use online because it's randomize the question. So I have a big bank of the question, so that is randomized. So it's not like traditional paper, right? And the second thing is that I ask them clearly that like when you do the exam, you are not allowed to use any other browser tab or any other application. Um, but in reality, there are maybe rare case that they still cheat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think even evaluation, do you think the examination is the right way to come up with some grading system, or do you think there are any other strategies like you develop this and then we'll see, demo it to the people, students and
Yeah,
faculty, and then based on that you'd grade?
I still use the hybrid approach, right? So my exam is like less than 50% of evaluation, like maybe 40%. In some cases, maybe just 30%. I think it's my pleasure to talk and share whatsoever. I hope this is helpful.
It was a pleasure talking to you, such an honor. Thank you so much. We unpacked so many things, a lot of discussions that we had about your journey. So I'll definitely cherish this moment for a long time.